welcome back. Today I'm outside where the light is good, so hopefully this will be a better experience for you than the last couple of videos, but thank you so much for sticking by me anyway. Today I'm coming to you with a wrap up of Randomathon, which as it sounds has a random theme. 2 weeks, 5 prompts. I've read 5 books. Technically one for each of the prompts, but I'm just going to go through what I've read, tell you a little bit about them, and tell you which prompts they could have counted for, and which prompts I did count them for. So this year the theme was books. It's books about books and books about reading, and I'm just going to get straight in. The first book I'm going to show you is the one that's least envelops the theme. Yeah, that's the order of this video. I'm going to give you from least to most thematically appropriate, and this I read for a recommendation, and it's the only prompt that they would have counted for, and it's To Cage a God by Elizabeth May. I really wanted to love this book, I really did. It's got own voices, chronic pain rep, it's queer, it's beautiful physically, and people who have gods literally inside their bodies that they have to kind of come to an uneasy truce with. So I love all the themes. I just didn't love it, and I don't know, something about it just didn't gel with me. So yeah, sorry about that. The second book I'm going to tell you about is Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, and this was set in a bookshop and has the word book in the title, and I think the prompt I allocated it to was book in the title, but it could have gone for either of those prompts. This is kind of a sweet contemporary romance between someone who's really shy and wants to meet someone and get out of her routines, because her family are just kind of dragging her out of her routines, and she doesn't feel safe, so she's looking for, I suppose, someone to listen to her and someone to be there for her. And on the other side, someone who is deliberately reclusive because he's had a lot of bad things happen to him, but he feels like, oh, poor little rich boy, like he feels like he doesn't deserve sympathy, and he doesn't deserve friends in some way. And then how they come to meet each other through this notebook which is left in a bookshop, which they're leaving dares to each other, and then eventually they meet in person, and it's so lovely, really lovely. The third book I want to tell you about is Can't Spell Treason Without T, and it's a bit like Bookshelves and Bone Dust, if you read that, but this is kind of what I really love about this. Oh wait, let me tell you what prompts. So I read it for Bookshelves on the cover, but it also could have worked for set in a bookshop, because it is set largely in a bookshop. So this is a couple, and it's really unusual for this. I can only think of one other book where this happens, so I'd love some recommendations down below, please. A couple who start out a couple, carry on, and are still a couple at the end, and it's so rare for that to happen in books, and you do get flashbacks for how they got together. But this couple are escaping from a oppressive regime, and one of them's a guard and one of them's a magician, so they both have reasons why they are high profile and known, and they decide to run away from all and open a bookshop and cafe. And it's just, their love for each other is so strong, and their friendship is so good. I mean, obviously they're a romantic relationship, but you have to be friends as well. And so I think it's really strong relationship, and they're just so lovely, and they're just like paying that outwards where they go, and they're just spreading that, and that's what I loved about this book. So when I was first reading it at first, I was like, do we need a second book like this? And yes we do, because it's actually quite different. Like, they start off very similar to Bookshelves and Bone Dust, and she does credit Bookshops and Bone Dust as being a big influence, but then they quite quickly diverge and they do different things with the story. So definitely read it, even if you have already read Bookshelves and Bone Dust, which would also have been a great one for this readathon. I just didn't read it for this. Okay, so that was my third book. Then I've got two books which really, for me, epitomised the zeitgeist of the readathon, if you don't mind me saying that. Hello, they don't need kisses. So one of which is Book of Form and Emptiness, which takes place in a library, and it's got book in the title, and I think I read and it's got a writer in it, because one of the characters is a poet, and I must have got it from a recommendation somewhere. So my copy did not have bookshelves on the cover, but it's got all the other 4 prompts. And this is a lit fic about a family where the dad dies, and then the mom and the child have to live with their grief. So he's a jazz clarinetist, and he's Japanese Korean, and he spent some time in a Zen monastery, and the mom comes to peace with herself through first she becomes a real hoarder. She can't let anything go, because she feels like she let too much go when her husband died, and then she meets this book about it was a Marie Kondo basically, but with a different name, but written by a Zen priest or Zen monk, and so she comes through the art of Zen into finding peace with her surroundings. And the boy Benny, he ends up in the library, like he's hearing voices, he's hearing the objects around him are talking to him, and this becomes a real problem because no one believes him, except he finds himself at the library with a Slovenian poet and this girl who's like an artist, and I really don't know how to describe her, but she's an artist, and they end up coming to terms with his hearing things, as in he just needs to listen to them and let them speak through him to a certain extent. And so part of it is mostly it's narrated by the book itself, which is like the book of his life, which has been talking to him and seeing things and writing it all down. It's a really interesting concept, and I really loved it, and it's really deep and thinky. So yeah, I really, and the author is herself a Zen monk, a priest. Oh, I keep getting priest and monk confused in Zen. I don't know much about Zen, I'm afraid. But because she is from within that tradition, I thought that was really, really interesting. I felt like obviously she knows what she's talking about, so I can pick that up. So I found it very beautiful, very moving, and very interesting, and with a great cast of characters. And the 5th book I'm going to tell you about, and again this one absolutely, I was a bit of I wasn't sure I was going to love it actually, and I did, and that's The Lost Bookshop. And I think this one's named 2 different things depending on whether you're in England or the US, or rather in the UK or the US. I'm not sure about other countries what name they got, that's a thing. And in this book I read it for one of the characters is an author, because actually the protagonist and the love interest are both poets, and this is someone who's running away from a really difficult childhood, and she's run away from both her biological mother, who's still alive, and her foster mother, both of whom kind of wish they were still in her life really, and she's run away from them, and she's started working in a bookshop in New York, and so it's also set in a bookshop, and it's got the word book in the title, it's got pictures on the title, pictures of bookshelves on the front cover, and it was a recommendation, so this one hits all 5 of the prompts, and it was really it's one of those ones that you sets up a mystery and then unwinds it, unravels it, and So the main character is, well, she's a poet, but she doesn't want to let too much of herself show because she's got this dark past that she wants to keep in the past. And she gets invited to a poetry evening, and she goes and she listens to poetry, and she eventually persuades it to perform some of her own poetry. And there's also like stuff from her past keeps showing up in the bookshop, and she's not sure who's responsible or why they're doing it. So she gets quite scared in the middle, and it is quite I found it quite scary. I didn't want her to get hurt, and I was worried she was going to get hurt, and she does get hurt during the book, but she also comes to a place of healing, and I found it really beautiful and I really loved it, so I would definitely recommend it. So all in all, I read 5 books. I loved 4 of them, 3 of them. So that's not a bad ratio really. And I did get all the books read that I said I was going to, and they were almost all the books that I said I was going to read, as well as all the books to fit at least 1 book for each prompt. The other book I'm reading at the moment, I didn't finish it in time for the end of the readathon, but I think fits the flavour of the readathon, is The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods, and this is about, it's got 2 twin timelines, but both of them echo each other. They are women who've been in abusive relationships, and they need a safe place to fulfill their potential, and this bookshop kind of appears to them. Both of them kind of get this bookshop and an elderly lady who's kind of settled, and knows and forthright, and both of them get a love interest who may or may not turn out good, I don't know yet. So they've got like these parallel lives set in Dublin, or maybe like they've come from elsewhere and they've come to Dublin, and I don't know where it's going from here, but I'm kind of intrigued to find out. And again, that's got shelves on the cover and book in the title, and I'm recommending it to you now, even though I might not recommend it when I've finished, I don't know. And book in the title, I said that already, didn't I? And I think it's got some stuff about Bronte's in, so writing might count, I don't know. But I've picked that up anyway, and I'm giving it a go, and I'll see how it is. And I will see you again soon. Bye.